I woke up on the morning of my 16th birthday and lay still for a full minute, listening. The house was already moving. I could hear my mom downstairs, opening and closing the fridge, talking to Ethan in the bright, organized voice she used when his schedule was tight. Something about his orthodontist appointment, something about his gear bag. The garage door ground open and then shut again, which meant my dad had already left for his early meeting or was sitting in the car on a call, waiting for it to end before he pulled out of the driveway. September 24th. A Wednesday. I did not get up right away. I stared at the ceiling and felt the familiar arithmetic running through me, the quiet little count I had gotten good at. No text on my phone, no knock on the door, no smell of anything sweet coming from the kitchen. Just the ordinary compression of a weekday morning in a house that ran on my brother's schedule, the way a train runs on a track. I sat up and checked my phone. 3 notifications, a group chat about a history project, a weather alert, and an ad from a shoe brand I had looked at once and could not escape. No messages that mattered. I scrolled through and then set the phone face down on my nightstand, next to the drawer where, if you opened it, you would find a single birthday candle wrapped in a napkin. I did not open it. I already knew it was there. I pulled on a sweatshirt and went downstairs. The kitchen was fluorescent bright and smelled like coffee and peanut butter. My mom had Ethan's lunch half assembled on the counter, 2 sandwiches in plastic bags, an apple, a protein bar. She was checking her phone with one hand and sealing a bag with the other. Ethan was at the table in his practice jersey, shoveling cereal, his backpack gaping open on the chair next to him like a mouth. "Morning, Hannah," my mom said without looking up. "Morning." I took a bowl from the cabinet, poured cereal, poured milk. Sat at the table across from my brother, who glanced up for half a second and then went back to his phone. The kitchen clock said 7:12. Through the window above the sink, the yard was pale and gray-green, the grass just starting to dry at the tips, the way it does in late September in Ohio, when summer is over, but nobody has said it out loud yet. My mom looked at me briefly while I ate. Not at me, exactly. Through the space I occupied. "Can you grab Ethan's water bottle from the dishwasher? I think it is in the back." I got up and got it. She took it from me, rinsed the cap, and handed it to Ethan. "We need to leave in 10 minutes, she told him. Then, already walking toward the hall, she called over her shoulder, "Dad will be home by 3 if you need anything." That was it. That was the whole morning. I finished my cereal, I washed my bowl myself, dried it, put it back. I wiped down the counter where a smear of peanut butter had been left and tossed the bread tie that was sitting next to the toaster. I put my shoes on by the front door and pulled my jacket off the hook. Nobody asked where I was going. Nobody said anything else to me at all. I stepped outside into the cool morning and stood on the front step for a moment, just breathing. The air smelled like someone down the street had mowed their lawn the day before. The sky was white and flat. Somewhere a dog was barking in short, bored bursts. I was 16 years old, and the house behind me had already forgotten I existed, but I was used to this. I had been used to it for exactly 3 years. The first time they forgot, I was 14. It was the Saturday of Ethan's travel soccer tournament in Columbus, 3 hours east. My parents had been planning the trip for weeks. Hotels, carpooling, a printed bracket with Ethan's team highlighted in yellow. He was 12 and already the kind of athlete that made adults pay attention, the kind of kid whose schedule became the family schedule without anyone deciding it should. My birthday fell on that Saturday. I knew it would be a problem, so I mentioned it a week before. I said, "My birthday is on the same day as the tournament." My mom was packing a cooler, and she nodded and said, We will do something when we get back, okay? They left at 5 in the morning. I stayed home because I told them I was fine, and because someone needed to let the dog out and bring in the mail, and because my mom looked so stressed about the drive that asking her to stay felt cruel. I was 14. I thought staying behind was the mature thing to do. I spent the day in the house alone. I watched TV for a while. I made a sandwich. I took the dog for a walk and came back and sat on the kitchen floor because the tile was cool and the house was so quiet that I needed to feel something solid under me. I kept checking my phone, not because I expected a party, just a call, a text, a single "Happy birthday" in the group chat. Anything. My dad called at 9 that night. "Did you feed Baxter?" he asked. I said yes. He said, "Good girl. We will be back tomorrow afternoon. Ethan scored twice." He sounded tired and proud and completely elsewhere. He did not mention my birthday. Neither did my mom when she texted a thumbs-up emoji 20 minutes later in response to my message that all the doors were locked. I sat in the kitchen with the lights off after that. No cake, no candles, just the hum of the refrigerator and the dog breathing next to me on the floor. Baxter put his chin on my knee and looked up at me with those patient brown eyes, and I scratched behind his ears because at least someone in the house noticed when I was sitting still too long. They came home the next afternoon, sunburned and loud, Ethan carrying a second-place trophy he kept raising over his head in the doorway. My mom hugged me and said they missed me. My dad grilled burgers for dinner and let me pick the music. Nobody said, "Happy belated birthday." Nobody said, "Sorry, we forgot." It was as if September 24th had simply happened and passed, like weather. I told myself it was a scheduling accident. An honest mistake. They were not bad parents. They were just busy, and I was the easy one, the kid who did not need watching. I told myself that being easy was a good thing, that being low maintenance was a kind of strength, a gift I was giving to a family that was already stretched thin by practices and tournaments and hotel reservations and brackets printed in yellow. I told myself that for a whole year. I almost believed it. The second time, I tested it. A week before my 15th birthday, I circled September 24th on the family calendar in the kitchen. We still used a paper calendar then, a big one from the hardware store that hung next to the fridge, covered in my mom's handwriting. Ethan's practices in blue, dentist appointments in black, Dad's business trips in red. Everything important to the family was marked on that calendar in ink. I circled my birthday in green and wrote Hannah's B-Day in small letters inside the square. I did not make it big. I did not draw exclamation points. I just wrote it, clearly, in a color no one else used, so that it would stand out if anyone looked. 4 days before, I mentioned it to my mom while she was sorting Ethan's uniforms. I said, I was thinking about what to do for my birthday this year. She had a jersey in each hand, and she was comparing stain levels. She said, yeah, we should do something. She held one jersey up to the light. Is this grass or paint? I waited. She did not circle back. 2 days before, I told my dad in the car. My birthday is on Thursday, I said, and he nodded and said, Already? That snuck up? He was listening to a podcast about market trends and turning the volume back up before I had finished my sentence. Thursday came. I woke up and checked my phone. Nothing. I went downstairs and my mom was on a call with another soccer parent about a carpool change. My dad was already at his office. Ethan was watching YouTube at the table and eating cereal with his fingers straight out of the box. I looked at the calendar. My green circle was still there. No one had seen it, or if they had not connected it to anything that required action. I went to school. I came home. I helped Ethan with his math, started dinner because my mom was running late, and sat at the table while my family talked about a plumbing problem in the upstairs bathroom. My birthday passed through the house like a word nobody heard. That night, after everyone else was in bed, I drove to the gas station on Route 9. I was only 15, but I had my permit and the station was less than a mile away. I bought a single birthday candle from a dusty package near the register. The woman behind the counter did not look at me twice. Back in my room, I stuck the candle into a granola bar from my desk drawer. I lit it with a match from the junk closet. The flame was small and yellow, and the wax started dripping almost immediately onto the oat clusters. I watched it for about 10 seconds. Then I closed my eyes and blew it out, fast, before the smoke detector could catch it or anyone could knock on my door and see what I was doing. I wrapped the candle in a napkin and put it in my nightstand drawer. I threw the granola bar away. I did not tell anyone. I did not cry. I had done the experiment, and the experiment had given me clean results. Without me forcing the memory, my birthday did not exist in this house. I was not angry about it. That was the worst part. I was just calibrated. I knew exactly what to expect the next year. And I was right. Back to the present. Back to 16. After I stepped outside, I stood on the front walk and listened to the neighborhood settle into its Wednesday rhythm. A school bus groaned down the next block. 2 houses over, someone's sprinkler was going in slow, even arcs, watering a lawn that did not need it. The air had that late September weight to it, like summer was still in the room, but had already packed its bags. Behind me, the front door opened and Ethan came out carrying his gear bag over one shoulder and his phone in the other hand. He walked past me without stopping. "Mom says she is leaving in 2 minutes," he said. Not to me exactly, just into the air. My mom followed a minute later, keys in hand, sunglasses on top of her head. She was already on the phone, talking to someone about a volunteer schedule for the team's upcoming fundraiser. She spotted me on the walk and mouthed a wave. Not a word, a wave. Then she got in the car with Ethan, backed out of the driveway, and was gone. I watched the car disappear around the corner and stood there in the quiet. Inside, I could hear my dad's muffled voice through the office window, the cadence of a conference call. He worked from home 3 days a week and spent most of that time behind a closed door with the kind of focus he never seemed to have when he was in the same room as me. I thought about knocking. I thought about standing in the doorway and saying, casually, "Do you know what today is?" But I already knew how it would go. He would look confused for half a second, check his phone, and then give me the same expression he gave Ethan when Ethan asked for money. Vaguely inconvenienced, vaguely willing. I did not knock. Instead, I went back into the kitchen and cleaned up the mess Ethan had left. Cereal box open on the counter, milk ring on the table, spoon in the sink but not rinsed. I wiped everything down, put the milk back, closed the cereal. My mom had left her coffee mug half full next to the stove, so I poured it out and washed that too. I was good at this. I moved through the house like someone whose job it was to reset the rooms after other people passed through them. Pick up the towel from the bathroom floor, straighten the shoes by the door, charge the tablet Ethan always left dead on the couch. There was a rhythm to it that almost felt like purpose. If you did not look too closely, you could mistake it for belonging. But today was my birthday, and the house had handed me its list of tasks the way it did every other day, without noticing that anything about this particular Wednesday was different from the one before it. I thought about making myself a cake. I actually opened the pantry and looked at the baking supplies on the top shelf, the bag of flour, the sugar, the box of cocoa powder that had been there since last Christmas. I could do it. I was good at following instructions. I could make a cake, light a candle, take a picture for no one, and eat a slice standing over the sink. But something about the image made my stomach turn. Not sadness. Something harder than that. Something closer to refusal. I closed the pantry. I grabbed my jacket from the hook by the door. And I walked outside again. This time, with no intention of coming back in until the house had something to give me other than chores. I walked without thinking about where I was going, and my feet took me down the sidewalk toward the end of the block. Mrs. Linden's house was the third from the corner, a small Cape Cod with white paint that had been peeling for as long as I could remember, and a porch that sagged slightly on the left side. She had lived there alone since before we moved in. I knew almost nothing about her life. I knew she was in her early 70s. I knew she kept her front garden so neat it made the rest of the street look lazy. I knew she had a gray cat that sat in the front window and watched the neighborhood like a security camera. I had started carrying her groceries in from the car a year and a half ago, after I saw her struggling with a bag on the porch steps one afternoon. It became a thing. Not a formal arrangement, just a recognition. I would see her pull into the driveway, and I would walk over and help. Sometimes we talked for a few minutes on the porch. She asked me about school. I asked about her garden. It was the kind of easy, boundaried contact that I was good at, the kind that never asked more of me than I could give. She was on her porch when I reached her house, standing by the railing with a watering can, tipping it over a row of mums that were just starting to open. She was wearing a blue cardigan, and her white hair was pinned back. She looked up when she heard my footsteps and set the can down. "Happy birthday, Hannah." I stopped walking. The words hit me like something physical, like a gust of wind that comes from the wrong direction and makes you lose your balance for a second. I stood on the sidewalk and stared at her, and something in my chest locked up. "What?" I said. She smiled, not a big smile, a careful one. "Happy birthday," she said again. 16, right? I could not speak for a moment. My mouth opened and nothing came out. I blinked and felt something sting behind my eyes and pressed my lips together because I was not going to cry on this woman's sidewalk at 8 in the morning. "How did you know?" I finally managed. Mrs. Linden picked up her watering can again and tilted it gently over the last pot of mums. "I have known for 3 years," she said. She set the can down and looked at me with the kind of direct, unhurried attention that adults almost never give teenagers. "You told me once, the first fall after your family moved in. We were talking about September, and you said your birthday was on the 24th. You did not think I remembered." I shook my head. I did not remember telling her. "Well," she said, "I remembered." She stood there for a second, watching me with that quiet, careful expression. Then she lifted one hand and gestured toward her front door. "Come inside for a minute," she said. "I have something for you." I should have said no. I should have said thank you. That is sweet. I have to get going. That was the script I had learned. The one where you keep things light and moving and do not let anyone see you standing too still. But something about the way she said it, the complete absence of performance, the fact that she was not trying to make this a big deal, but also was not pretending it was not one, made me walk up the porch steps instead. I followed her inside, and the screen door closed behind me with a quiet slap. Mrs. Linden's house smelled like lemon cleaner and old books. The living room was small and painfully neat, with a floral sofa that had been covered in plastic at some point in the past, but was now bare and faded. A shelf by the window held a row of framed photographs, and a gray cat watched me from the top of an armchair with the same flat, evaluating stare it gave me from the window. "Sit anywhere," she said, and disappeared into the kitchen. I sat on the edge of the sofa. The cat blinked at me. I blinked back. Through the kitchen doorway, I could hear Mrs. Linden opening a drawer and shuffling through something. She came back carrying a small wrapped package and an envelope. The wrapping paper was a deep blue with tiny silver stars, the kind you find at a craft store, not a gas station. The tape was cut in careful, even strips. She had not rushed this. "Here," she said, handing both to me. "Open the card first." I opened the envelope. The card had a watercolor painting of wildflowers on the front, not a mass-produced Hallmark design, but something that looked almost handmade. Inside, Mrs. Linden had written in neat cursive, "Happy 16th birthday, Hannah. I remember the year you wore the green dress to homecoming and came home early. I remember you reading a book with a red cover on your porch last spring, turning pages faster than anyone I've ever seen. I remember that you started running at 6:15 every morning in March, and you have not stopped since. I remember that you carried my groceries for the first time on a Tuesday, and when I said thank you, you said, 'Do not worry about it,' as if being kind was the most ordinary thing in the world. 16 is important. I wanted you to know somebody noticed." My hands were shaking by the time I finished reading. Not trembling, shaking. The kind of shaking that starts in your fingers and moves up through your wrists and forearms until you have to set the card down because you are afraid you will crumple it. I set it down on my knee and pressed my palms flat against my thighs. "Open the other one," she said gently. I peeled the tape off the wrapping paper. Inside was a leather journal, dark brown with a soft cover. On the front, stamped in small gold letters, was my name. Hannah. Not a monogram, not initials. My whole name, spelled out in a font that looked like handwriting. I ran my thumb over the letters. "I ordered it in August," she said. "I wanted it to be here in time." I looked up at her. She was sitting in the armchair across from me, her hands folded in her lap, and she was watching me the way you watch someone when you are trying to make sure they are okay and do not want to push. "Why?" I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "Because you deserve to be noticed," she said. Simply, without drama, the way someone states a fact that should be obvious. I looked back down at the journal. I pressed my thumb into the embossed letters of my name and thought about my mom in the kitchen that morning, sealing Ethan's sandwich bags, not looking up. I thought about my dad on his call, behind the closed door. I thought about the family calendar in the kitchen, the one covered in blue and black and red ink, and the solitary green circle I had drawn a year ago that no one had mentioned. A woman I barely knew had ordered a journal in August with my name on it. She had written a card that proved she had been watching my life with more detail and more care than my own parents could manage in 3 years. I did not know what to do with that. So I just held the journal and said, "Thank you," and it came out broken but real. I walked home with the journal tucked under my arm and the card in my back pocket. The house had not changed. It never changed. That was the thing about a house that runs on someone else's rhythm. You could leave it for an hour and walk back in, and everything would be exactly where it was, as if your absence had been absorbed without leaving a mark. My dad was still in his office. The door was still closed. I could hear him typing now, the quick bursts followed by silence, followed by more typing. He was productive in there. He was good at his job. He just happened to occupy the same house as me without any overlap that mattered. My mom was back. She had dropped Ethan at school after the orthodontist and was standing at the kitchen island with her laptop open, scrolling through something, a shopping list or an email thread. I could not tell from the doorway. She looked up when I came in. "Where did you go?" she asked. "Just walked around the block." She nodded and went back to her screen. "Dad is ordering pizza for dinner since I have that meeting at 6. Can you tell Ethan when he gets home?" "Sure." I stood in the doorway for a beat too long. I was holding the journal against my ribs, the embossed letters pressing through my sweatshirt. I wanted to say something. Something like, "Do you know what Mrs. Linden gave me today?" Or, "Do you know what today is?" Or even just, "Can you look at me for 30 seconds and see if there's anything different about this day?" But the moment was already moving past me. My mom was typing. The kitchen light buzzed the way it always did, that faint, fluorescent hum that I could feel in my teeth. The pizza conversation was over. The exchange was done. I went upstairs to my room and sat on my bed. I opened the journal and ran my fingers across the blank pages. They were thick and cream-colored, the kind that felt expensive under your hand, the kind that made you want to write something worth the paper. On the inside front cover, Mrs. Linden had written in pencil, "For all the things worth remembering." I closed it and held it against my chest. Then I opened my nightstand drawer. The birthday candle was still there, wrapped in its napkin from last year. Pale pink wax, slightly bent from the heat. I had not thrown it away because it was the only evidence I had that my 15th birthday had happened at all. It was proof. Not of celebration, but of survival. I looked at the candle and then at the journal, and I thought about how strange it was that two objects could sit next to each other and tell completely different stories. One said, "You were alone, and you made do." The other said, "You were not as invisible as you thought." From downstairs, I heard my mom on the phone again, laughing about something with another parent, using her organizing voice, the competent one, the one that solved problems for other people all day, without realizing she had missed the biggest one sitting at her own kitchen table. The contrast was so sharp, it almost took my breath away. I had walked out of a house where no one remembered I was born, and into a living room 2 doors down, where a woman had tracked the details of my life, with the kind of attention my own mother had not shown me since I stopped needing help with homework. I set the journal on my nightstand next to the candle. They looked like they belonged together, and also like they were from 2 different lives. I lay back on my bed and stared at the ceiling and thought, something has to change. I cannot do this a 4th time. I just did not know yet what changing would look like. I went back to Mrs. Linden's porch that afternoon. I told myself I was going to return a dish she had given me weeks ago, a small ceramic plate she had used to bring over tomatoes from her garden, but I did not bring the plate. I just walked down the sidewalk at 3:30, when the light was getting that gold-edged quality it gets in late September, and knocked on her screen door. She opened it like she had been expecting me. Maybe she had. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the 2 metal chairs on the porch. They had faded cushions, one green and one blue, both flattened from years of use. I took the green one. She brought out 2 glasses of iced tea without asking if I wanted one. We sat quietly for a minute. The street was empty. A few houses down, someone's wind chime was turning slowly in a breeze I could not feel. "I wanted to ask you something," I said. She waited. "The card you wrote, the things you put in it, the homecoming dress, the book, the running. How did you know all of that?" She took a sip of her tea and set the glass on the arm of her chair. "I pay attention," she said. Then she paused, as if she was deciding whether to say more. "And I write things down." She went inside and came back a minute later with a small spiral notebook. It had a blue cover, the kind you buy in a pack of 3 at the drugstore. She handed it to me without ceremony. "Open it," she said. I opened it. The first page was dated September 24th, 3 years ago, the year I turned 14. In Mrs. Linden's neat cursive, it said, "Hannah's birthday. Her family left early for a tournament. She stayed home alone. I saw her sitting on the porch steps at 4 p.m. She was there for over an hour. No one came outside. No one pulled into the driveway. She went inside when it got dark." I turned the page. September 24th, 2 years ago. My 15th birthday. Hannah's birthday. No activity in the house. Light in her upstairs window at 11 p.m. A small glow, like a candle, gone after a minute. I stared at that entry. She had seen the candle, the gas station candle in the granola bar, the one I lit and blew out in 10 seconds in the dark of my room, the one I thought no one on earth knew about. She had seen the glow through my window. I kept turning pages. The notebook was not just birthdays. There were other entries scattered through the months. March 4th. Hannah started running this week, 6:15 every morning. Blue headphones. Same route toward the park and back. April 22nd. Hannah sitting on the curb after school. 3:40, crying, 15 minutes. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and walked inside like nothing happened. June. Hannah is reading every afternoon on the porch. Red paperback. She finishes it in 4 days and starts another one. August 9th. Hannah carried my groceries again. I asked her how her summer was. She said fine. She did not mean it. I closed the notebook. My throat was so tight I could feel my pulse in it. I looked up at Mrs. Linden, and she was watching me with that same quiet, steady expression. Not expectant, not emotional, just present. I started writing it down, she said, because I did not want to forget the way other people were forgetting. I could not speak. I pressed the notebook against my lap and stared at the porch floor, at the cracked paint and the small leaf caught in the gap between the boards. This woman had a record of my life. Not the version my parents knew, the grades and the chores and the reliable daughter who never made noise. The other version. The one who sat alone on her birthday. The one who cried on the curb. The one who ran every morning, not for fitness, but because it was the only hour of the day that felt like hers. She had written it all down in a $1 notebook, in careful handwriting over 3 years. And my own parents could not tell you what time I woke up. The ground shifted under me, not metaphorically. I felt it in my body, a kind of internal vertigo, as if the story I'd been telling myself about my life, the story where being overlooked was fine because I was strong enough to handle it, had just been picked up and turned sideways, and now I could see the underside, and the underside was not strength, it was damage. And someone else had seen it before I did. I handed the notebook back to her. She took it and set it on her lap. "Can I ask you something?" I said. "Of course." "Why me?" She did not answer right away. She looked out at the street for a moment, at the houses with their trimmed lawns and their SUVs in the driveways and their drawn blinds. Then she looked at me. "I had a daughter," she said, "Claire." She said the name the way people say a word they have said 10,000 times, with all the edges worn smooth. Not raw, just permanent. She was 19 when she died. Car accident. An icy road in November, coming home from college for Thanksgiving. She was driving too fast because she wanted to make it for dinner. The police said she lost control on a curve about 40 minutes from here. Mrs. Linden said all of this in a level voice, the kind of voice you develop after years of telling the same story to doctors and neighbors and strangers. There was no performance in it, just the facts and the space around them. "After she died," she said, "I spent years trying to remember things. Small things. What Claire ate for breakfast the last time I saw her. Whether she seemed happy that week or distracted. What book was on her nightstand. What she was wearing when she hugged me goodbye." I kept reaching for those details and finding them gone. Not because they were forgotten, but because I had never learned them in the first place. I had been so busy being her mother in the large sense, paying tuition, worrying about her grades, calling to check on her, that I had stopped noticing the small things, the daily things, the ones that tell you who a person actually is when no one is asking. She paused and adjusted the notebook on her lap. "When your family moved in, I watched you the way old women watch their neighborhoods. Casually, without agenda. But then, your first birthday came, and no one was home, and I saw you on the porch, and something in me recognized it. Not the sadness, the patience, the way you sat there, like you had decided this was acceptable. She looked at me directly. I do not think you are my daughter. I do not need you to be. But when I saw a girl who was being overlooked by the people closest to her, I decided I would not overlook her too. Because I failed at that once, with Claire, in a different way, and I will not do it again if I can help it. I sat with that for a long time. The iced tea sweated in my hand. I wanted to say something adequate, but nothing I had was big enough for what she had just told me. So I said the only true thing. I am sorry about Claire. She nodded. Thank you. And I am sorry you did not get to know the small things. Something crossed her face then, a quick tightening around the eyes that came and went in less than a second. She looked down at the notebook and then back at me. That is the precise thing, she said quietly. That is exactly it. Paying attention when it is still possible is the only useful thing I have found. Everything else people told me about grief, all the stages and the sayings and the advice, none of it compared to just learning to look more carefully at the people who are still here. The wind chime turned again down the street. The light was starting to change, going from gold to something cooler, the first hint that the afternoon was moving toward evening. I looked at this woman who had lost her daughter on an icy road and turned that loss into 3 years of careful notes in a notebook, not because I was special, but because she refused to make the same mistake twice. There was nothing sentimental about it. It was discipline. It was the most loving thing anyone had ever done for me, and she had done it without needing me to know, without asking for gratitude, without turning it into a performance. She was not a fairy godmother. She was a grieving mother who had decided that attention was the only inheritance worth leaving. And in 3 years of living 2 doors down from her, I had never known. I walked home at 5:30. The house smelled like pizza. My dad had ordered it while I was gone, 2 larges from the usual place, and the boxes were open on the kitchen island. Ethan was already eating, standing at the counter with a slice in one hand and his phone propped against the paper towel holder, watching a game recap. My mom was setting out plates. She looked up when I came in. "There you are," she said. "Grab a plate?" I grabbed a plate. We sat at the table. My dad came in from his office, still half in work mode, checking his phone while he pulled out his chair. He took 2 slices and ate one while typing with his free hand. Ethan was talking about practice, about a drill where the coach had made them run suicides, about how his legs were sore and he needed new shin guards. My mom listened and nodded. "We will look at shin guards this weekend." She asked about his homework. He groaned. She said, "After dinner, no excuses." The machinery of the evening was running on schedule. I ate my pizza. I chewed and swallowed and looked at each face at the table and felt the strangest kind of double vision. This was my family. These were people who kept the fridge stocked and the heat running and the car insured. They drove Ethan to tournaments and me to school, and they did not hit or insult or neglect us in any way that would sound alarming if you described it to a guidance counselor. But Mrs. Linden knew I started running in March. She knew the color of my homecoming dress. She knew I cried on the curb in April, and she knew how long I cried, and she knew I wiped my face and went inside without telling anyone. My mother did not know what time I woke up. My father could not name a single friend of mine without prompting. And neither of them had any idea that today, September 24th, was a day that was supposed to matter. I picked a piece of pepperoni off my slice and put it on the edge of my plate. "Hannah, are you okay?" my dad said, glancing up from his phone. "I am fine." "You are quiet." "I am always quiet." He looked at me for a second, as if he was trying to decide whether that was a normal sentence or a loaded one. Then Ethan said something about the game schedule, and my dad turned back to him, and the moment dissolved like sugar in water. My mom was checking her watch. She stood up, grabbed her laptop bag, and looked at us. "Ethan, homework. Hannah, can you clean up the kitchen?" "Sure." She kissed the top of Ethan's head on her way out. She did not kiss mine, not because she chose not to, but because I was sitting on the other side of the table, and it simply did not occur to her to walk the extra 5 steps. That was it. That was the shape of the thing. Not cruelty, not malice, just insufficient attention, distributed unevenly in a house where one child made noise and the other one did not. I cleaned the kitchen. I closed the pizza boxes, wiped the counter, loaded the plates into the dishwasher. Ethan went upstairs. My dad went back to his office, and I stood alone at the sink with my hands in warm water, looking out the window at the evening light going gray, and I could feel it building in me. Not anger, exactly. Something steadier than anger. The feeling of having held a heavy thing for so long that your muscles have stopped hurting and just gone numb, and then someone puts a lighter thing in your other hand, and suddenly you can feel the weight of the first one again. Mrs. Linden's journal was upstairs. Her notebook was in her house 2 doors down. The evidence was real. The contrast was documented, and the practice smile I had been wearing for 3 years was starting to crack down the center in a way I could not smooth over. Something was going to happen tonight. I could feel it the way you feel weather changing. My mom got home from her meeting at 7:40. Ethan was in his room. My dad was watching something on his laptop at the kitchen table. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, pretending to read, holding the same page for 20 minutes. She came in through the garage door and set her bag down. "Everything good?" she called out. "Yeah," my dad said. I stood up, I walked into the kitchen, and I did not sit down. I stood at the end of the island, where the light from the overhead fixture fell straight across my face, and I looked at both of them. "Do you know what today is?" I said. My mom was reaching for a glass from the cabinet. She stopped. My dad looked up from his screen. Ethan's music thumped faintly from upstairs. The silence that followed lasted about 3 seconds, but felt deep enough to fall into. My mom's face changed first. I watched it happen in real time, the blankness, then the flicker of confusion, then the slow, crawling arrival of recognition. Her lips parted. She set the glass down on the counter with a small click. "Oh, Hannah," she said. My dad checked his phone. I watched him swipe to the calendar app and stare at the screen, and I watched his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something tight and uncomfortable. "Oh, honey," my mom said. She pressed her hand over her mouth. "Oh, God." "It is my birthday," I said. My voice was flat. Not because I was trying to be cold, because I had rehearsed this sentence so many times in my head over the last 3 years that all the heat had burned out of it. My mom set her hand on the counter. "We have been so overwhelmed," she said. "With Ethan's schedule and your dad's project and the fundraiser, and I do not know how I know that is not an excuse, but things have just been so..." She trailed off. She was looking at me the way people look at damage they did not know they caused. My dad closed his laptop. "Hannah," he said. "I am sorry. You should have said something." There it was. That sentence, the one I had known, was coming the way you know the end of a bad joke. You should have said something, as if it was my job to remind the people who were supposed to remember. As if the responsibility for being noticed had been mine all along, and I had failed at it, and whatever hurt I felt was the cost of my own silence. I stared at him. He stared back. He did not mean it to sound the way it sounded. I knew that. He was embarrassed and caught off guard and grasping for something that made this manageable. But it landed exactly where it landed, which was on top of 3 years of birthdays I had spent alone. "Is that really what you want to say right now?" I said. He blinked. "I just mean, if you had told us, we would have..." "Would have what? Remembered? Like parents are supposed to?" The kitchen went very quiet. My mom had tears on her cheeks now. My dad's jaw was set. Ethan appeared at the top of the stairs, drawn by the tension like a dog hearing a strange noise. "What is going on?" Ethan asked. Nobody answered him. I did not plan what came next. It was not a speech. It was not a monologue I'd practiced in the mirror. It was the sound of something that had been held too long, finally giving way. "This is the 3rd year," I said. My mom flinched. "The 3rd year in a row that you forgot my birthday. Not once. 3 times. "Hannah," my dad started. "The first time, I was 14. You were in Columbus for Ethan's tournament. You left at 5 in the morning and you called me at 9 at night to ask if I fed the dog. That was it. That was my 14th birthday." Ethan had come halfway down the stairs. He was standing on the landing, holding the railing, looking at me with his mouth open. The second time, I circled the date on the calendar. I wrote it in green ink. I told you both, separately, that my birthday was coming. Neither of you remembered. So that night, I drove to the gas station on Route 9 and bought a birthday candle. I stuck it in a granola bar in my room, and I lit it, and I blew it out by myself in the dark. My mom made a sound. A small one, barely audible, like the air leaving a balloon. Today is the 3rd time. I woke up this morning and nobody said anything. I ate breakfast alone. I cleaned up the kitchen. I walked out of the house and nobody asked where I was going. And a woman who lives 2 houses down, a woman I barely know, looked at me on the sidewalk and said, "Happy birthday, Hannah." She knew my name. She knew the date. She knew how old I was turning. She has known for 3 years. I was shaking, not with anger. With the effort of saying out loud what I had held quietly for 1,000 days. A stranger wrote down things about my life in a notebook. She wrote down the day I started running. She wrote down the afternoon I was crying on the curb. She wrote down the color of my homecoming dress. She knows more about me than either of you. And she has no reason to. None. She chose to pay attention because she thought I deserved it. My voice cracked on the last word. I did not try to smooth it. "You are not bad people," I said. "I know that. You pay my tuition. You keep the lights on. You drive me where I need to go. But you do not see me. You have not seen me in 3 years. And I am done pretending that is okay." The kitchen was silent except for the refrigerator's hum and the faint thump of Ethan's music, which he had forgotten to turn off. My mom was crying, not the kind of crying that looks for comfort, the kind that looks at the ground. My dad's jaw was tight. He opened his mouth and closed it. Then he said, "That is not fair, Hannah." And I said, "No, it is not." I did not say it with triumph. I said it with the specific exhaustion of someone who has just emptied a room and does not know how to furnish it again. Because that was the truth. The silence was broken. The thing I had been carrying was on the table. But the table was a mess now, and everyone in the room looked diminished, and I did not feel powerful. I felt hollowed out and raw, and 16 years old, and scared that I had just changed something I could not undo. Ethan was still on the stairs. He said, quiet and confused, "I did not know it was today." Nobody told him it was okay, because nobody knew if it was. The rest of the evening moved the way evenings move after a detonation. Slowly, carefully, with everyone treating the air like it might crack again if they breathed too hard. Ethan went to his room without being told. My dad sat at the kitchen table for a long time, staring at nothing. My mom cleaned the counter that was already clean, wiping the same spot in slow circles, and then she stopped and pressed her hands flat on the surface and stood there with her head down. I went upstairs. I closed my door and sat on my bed and stared at the wall. The journal from Mrs. Linden was on my nightstand. The gas station candle was in the drawer. I did not touch either of them. I just sat and breathed and let the adrenaline drain out of me in slow, shivering waves. At 8:30, my mom knocked. I said, "Come in." She opened the door and stood in the frame for a second, like she was not sure the invitation was real. Then she came in and sat on the edge of my bed, about 2 feet from me, leaving space between us that felt deliberate. She looked older than she had looked that morning. Not in her face, but in her posture, the way her shoulders had dropped and her hands were clasped together in her lap, like she was holding them still, on purpose. "I did not realize it had gotten this bad," she said. I waited. "I love you, Hannah. You know that." She looked at me. "I love you so much. I know." I do not know how we let this happen. I keep going over it in my mind, and I do not have a good answer. We got so focused on Ethan's schedule and your dad's work and everything that is loud, and you were always so steady. You never needed anything. You never asked. Because I learned not to. She closed her eyes. A tear ran down her cheek, and she wiped it with the back of her hand. "That should not have been something you had to learn," she said. "I know that. I just did not see it." She asked about Mrs. Linden. I told her. I told her about the card and the journal and the notebook with 3 years of entries. I told her about Claire and the icy road. I watched my mom's face change as each piece of information landed, watched the guilt settle into her expression like sediment in water. A 70-year-old woman, 2 doors down, has been paying more attention to my daughter than I have, she said. She was not saying it to me. She was saying it to the room, to herself. I did not contradict her. I also did not make it worse. There was no point. The truth was doing its own work. She reached out and touched my hand. I let her. Her fingers were cold. "I am not going to pretend one conversation fixes this," she said, "but I need you to know that I heard you, and I am going to do better, not because you told me to, because you are right." They were good words. They were the kind of words I had imagined hearing in weaker moments, late at night when I let myself want things. But hearing them now did not feel like victory. It felt like the first day after a long illness, where you are technically better, but you can still feel the thing that broke you, sitting in your chest like a shadow. She stood up and walked to the door. Then she stopped and turned around. "Happy birthday, Hannah," she said. It was 9 hours late. It was the smallest, most imperfect version of the thing I had needed, and it landed harder than anything that had come before it, because it cost her something to say it. I could see the cost in her face. "Thank you," I said. She left. The door closed, and I lay in the dark and felt the strange, heavy exhaustion of having been finally heard. The next morning was a Thursday. I woke up early, the way I always did, and lay in bed listening to the house. But the sounds were different. My dad's office door was open. I could hear him in the kitchen, which was unusual. He did not usually come downstairs before Ethan. I pulled on my sweatshirt and went down. The kitchen was quiet. My dad was sitting at the table with a mug of coffee, and in front of my usual chair was a card, a drugstore card, the kind with a cartoon cake on the front and a joke inside that nobody ever laughs at. He had written something on the inside in his blocky handwriting. His pen was still on the table next to it, cap off, like he had just finished. He looked up when he saw me. He did not say good morning. He just nodded at the card. I sat down and opened it. Inside, below the printed joke, he had written, "Hannah, I am proud of you in ways I have not been good at saying. I let the years get away from me, and that is on me, not you. You should never have had to remind us. Happy birthday, even though it is late and from a dad who should have been better. I love you, Dad." The handwriting got smaller toward the bottom, like he had run out of space and kept going anyway. I could see where he had pressed too hard on one word, and the ink had bled. He had written this at midnight, maybe later. I could picture him sitting at this table in the dark kitchen, trying to fit something important into a card that was too small for it. I set the card down and looked at him. "Thank you," I said. He nodded again. His eyes were red at the edges. He took a sip of his coffee and did not say anything else, which was the most honest thing he could have done, because my dad was not a talker, and any more words would have been performance. A few minutes later, Ethan came downstairs. He was wearing his practice jersey and carrying his backpack by one strap. He stopped in the kitchen doorway and looked at me. "What kind of cake do you like?" he said. I stared at him. "What? What kind of cake?" "For your birthday. I am going to get you one." He said it with the specific seriousness of a 13-year-old who has decided something and does not want to be talked out of it. His eyes were steady. He was not smiling. "Chocolate," I said. He wrote it on his hand with a Sharpie from the junk drawer. "Chocolate," in capital letters on the back of his left hand. Then he poured himself a glass of juice and sat at the table and started eating cereal, and the morning moved forward. My mom came downstairs 10 minutes later. She was quieter than usual. She made Ethan's lunch without the organizing voice, without the running commentary. She looked at me once, a long look, and said, "Good morning, Hannah." Not the automated good morning she usually gave, a deliberate one, the kind that took effort. These were not redemptions. A card written at midnight does not erase 3 years. A question about cake does not rebuild a relationship. But they were first drafts. Clumsy, imperfect, late, the way first drafts always are. The house was not healed. It was cracked open, and through the cracks, I could see the beginning of a tension, not the effortless kind Mrs. Linden had given me. The hard kind, the kind that comes after failure, after a daughter standing in your kitchen telling you the truth you should have seen yourself. It was not the family I wanted, but it was the one that was trying to learn. And I decided, standing in that kitchen with my dad's card in my hand and Ethan's handwriting on his skin, that trying was enough to start with. I walked to Mrs. Linden's house after school. The afternoon had turned cool, the way late September does in Ohio when the sun drops behind the tree line and the air remembers that summer is done. The leaves on her front maple were just starting to yellow at the edges. Her garden mums were in full bloom, rust and gold and deep purple, lined up along the porch steps like an audience. She was sitting in her green chair with a book in her lap. She looked up when I came through the gate and closed the book without marking the page. "How are you?" she said. I sat down in the blue chair and pulled my knees up. "I told them," I said. She nodded. She did not ask what happened. She waited. So I told her, the kitchen, the silence after I asked the question. My mom's face, my dad saying I should have reminded them. The eruption. 3 years of candles and calendars and invisible mornings, all coming out at once, in a voice I barely recognized as mine. She listened the way she always did, with her full body, her hands still, her eyes on me. When I finished, she said, "Good." Just that. Good. Not great. Not "I am so proud of you." Just a quiet affirmation that what I had done was the right thing. delivered without celebration, because she understood that the telling was not the hard part. "The hardest part is never the telling," she said, as if she had heard my thought. "It is the morning after, when you have to live in the new shape of things." "It is weird," I said. "The house feels different. Not better, just different." "Different is the first thing," she said. "Better takes longer. Sometimes much longer." She stood up and went inside. I heard her open a drawer. The same drawer she had opened yesterday for the journal. The same quiet slide and click. She came back carrying 3 small objects in her cupped palm. Birthday candles, 3 of them. Each one slightly crooked and crusted with a ring of dried wax at the base. One was pink, one was yellow, one was white. She sat back down and held them out to me. "Every year on September 24th, she said, I baked a small cake in my kitchen. Nothing fancy, just a box mix from the grocery store. I put 1 candle in it and lit it and stood there for a minute, thinking about you. Then I blew it out and saved the candle." I stared at them. "The pink one is from your 14th birthday. That was the year you sat on the porch alone. The yellow one is from your 15th. I saw the glow in your window that night, and I baked my cake the next morning. And the white one is from today." She placed them in my hand, one at a time. Each one weighed almost nothing. The wax was cool and smooth. "I lit them for you," she said, "because somebody should have. Now they are yours." I held the 3 candles in my open palm and looked at them. Pink, yellow, white. 3 years. 3 small cakes baked alone in a kitchen, 2 doors from mine. 3 moments of attention that no one had asked for and no one had known about until now. I thought about the gas station candle in my nightstand drawer, the one I had bought for myself on my 15th birthday, the one I had lit in secret and blown out in shame. It had been my proof that the day happened. My private record, my version of Mrs. Linden's notebook. But hers were different. Mine were survival. Hers were witness. "Thank you," I said, and this time the words came out whole. I sat on that porch for a long time after Mrs. Linden went inside. The 3 candles lay in my palm. Pink, yellow, white. I turned them over with my thumb, feeling the dried wax catch against my skin. They were small and imperfect and ordinary. They were the most valuable things I owned. The September light was doing that thing it does at the end of the day, going from pale gold to something deeper, almost amber, like the air itself was warming up before it cooled down for good. The mums along the steps were glowing in it. The wind chime 2 houses down turned once and went still. I thought about Mrs. Linden inside her kitchen, standing alone on September 24th for 3 years in a row, baking a cake no one would eat for a girl who did not know she was being watched. I thought about her daughter Claire, who never made it home for Thanksgiving, whose mother spent years trying to remember the small things she had failed to notice when noticing was easy. I thought about my own family. My dad at the kitchen table at midnight, pressing too hard on a pen, trying to fit 3 years of missed attention into a drugstore card. My mom sitting on my bed saying, "I did not realize," and knowing it was not enough, and saying it anyway. Ethan writing chocolate on his hand in Sharpie, the way a 13-year-old fixes a wrong he did not know he committed. None of it erased what had happened. 3 birthdays do not come back. The girl who sat on the porch alone at 14 was still in me. The girl who lit a gas station candle in the dark was still in me too. But they were not the only versions of me anymore. There was also the girl who stood in her own kitchen and said, "This is the 3rd year," who did not smooth it over, who let the room get uncomfortable and did not apologize for the discomfort. That girl was new. She was scared and unfinished, and she did not know yet how to be visible without bracing for punishment. But she existed now, and she was not going back into the drawer. I looked down at the candles in my hand. 3 years of being witnessed by someone who had no obligation to care. 3 small flames lit in a kitchen I had never entered until yesterday. 3 birthdays that existed in someone else's memory, written down in careful cursive, kept safe in a $1 notebook. I did not blow them out this time. There was nothing to blow out. They were just wax and wick and color sitting in my palm in the last light of a September afternoon, but I held them like they were lit. I held them like they were proof. From across the yard, I heard my mother's voice. "Hannah," she called. Just my name. Not a request, not a chore, just my name, hanging in the evening air the way a question does when someone is genuinely asking. I looked up. The porch light was on at my house. The front door was open. My mother was standing on the step, silhouetted against the hallway light, looking in my direction. She was looking for me, not because she needed something, because she wanted to know where I was. I closed my fingers around the 3 candles. I felt the wax press gently into my palm. I stood up from the chair and stepped off Mrs. Linden's porch into the cooling grass. And this time, I answered.